I'm going crazy right now.
Everything seems fine. We're gonna try this again. I hate my life. This is like the worst thing ever. Welcome to Building Friendships. I am your unqualified host, John Sosis, and today we have another amazing guest, one of my favorite people here to build Lego with me. She is a comic. She is a podcaster. You can see her podcast, Help with Natalie Cuomo, online, everywhere, anywhere you get your podcast, on YouTube. And she has a special, Shut Up, You Loved It, now on her YouTube page, Natalie Cuomo.
Thank you so much, John. How are you?
It was great. It only took 4 intros.
You know what? I loved each and every one of them.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being here. How's LA going?
It's been great. I'm loving it.
Are you?
It's very fun, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. You're because you know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going home at some point.
Wow, you're kind of jaded about LA.
I hate it.
Why?
We'll get into it.
Okay.
Let's show them what sets we're doing.
Okay.
We're keeping it video game related. I'm going with Donkey Kong, and we're gonna build Rambi the Rhino. This is from Donkey Kong 64. I grew up with this. What are you up to?
I am so excited. First of all, one of my most streamed games on Twitch is Mario Kart. So I am so stoked that you picked this for me, the piranha plants.
I love it.
I love when I get the piranha plant when I'm playing. You can kind of just eat everyone.
Yeah.
This is very exciting. And then I got a person. Is he going to be a surprise?
Yeah, you don't know what it is. You could open it now, open it later, but we have a Super Mario minifigure.
All right,
we're
so
going.
You don't like LA because
I think
you
I'm
like
just,
New York better?
It's not New York. Yeah, I grew up my whole life in New York. Even though you don't know, I mean, you're from New York. You've never heard of where I'm from. Nobody has, but I feel like
you're from Coney Island.
Well, you just said that because I just told you that. But when
it's very niche where you're from.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't think so.
I mean, New York's a big place.
It is, but I feel like when you meet most people, they're from Williamsburg, Borough Park, like areas that aren't Coney Island. Like South Brooklyn is very South, like it's. Rarely have I ever met someone from South. Rarely do I meet people that are originally from New York.
This is valid. I mean, do you feel like most of the people you grew up with stayed, or
yeah.
They did?
Yeah. What about you?
No, I feel like most people did leave.
Really? Like to where?
I didn't really stay in touch, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Where'd you go to school?
High school?
Yeah.
I went to Bard High School.
Okay.
Do you know that place?
No, but I know like they have that arts high school in Queens that I probably should have gone to. Instead, I was in like the law program.
Which one?
What's it
Frank
called?
Sinatra?
No, there's an art school, not JFK, not Kennedy. There's like an art
LaGuardia?
school. Yeah, LaGuardia.
That's in Manhattan.
Is it?
Yes. You know LaGuardia?
LaGuardia?
LaGuardia's in Manhattan.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
I constantly thought it was in Queens. Forever I thought
Frank
it was in Queens.
Sinatra's in Queens, LaGuardia's in Manhattan.
So maybe I'm
There's a
mixing
whole
those up.
musical based off of it called Fame.
I know, and I've never seen it.
I auditioned, I didn't get in. And I mean, whenever I do a show, like at the stand, and someone says they're from New York, I ask what high school. If they went to LaGuardia and I'm on stage and they're not, I mean, it just feels so good.
I imagine. Is that... So we're going to start at the beginning. Is that like the type of personality you typically have? Like when somebody... Because I'm kind of the same way when... I see somebody that I don't, not that I don't like, but that I feel like they've skated by and I see them fail at something, I'm kind of like, yeah, you didn't earn that.
No, it's just that it was my dream to go there since I was like in first grade. I was obsessed with that musical. I wanted to go to that school so badly, and I thought it was kind of like the end all be all, and I didn't get in. And then, it turns out that like, that wasn't the only way, and that wasn't even the way, because the people that did go there are like not even doing it. So
yeah, that makes sense.
It's not necessarily that like I wanted them to fail. It's more just
like, oh, I didn't need that.
That rejection didn't carry the weight that I thought it did.
Yeah, that's how I feel about college in general now. There are so many successful people that decided they'd rather focus on what they want to do versus go to school, and I kind of grew up in the generation of, no, you have to go to college. What do you mean you're not going to college? Of course you're going to college.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing I learned in college that I'm utilizing. I'm building Lego at 38, almost 38. It's like, I didn't need to take geology 4 times.
What did you want to do when you were younger?
So I wanted to do something in entertainment. There was that point where I wanted to be a comic, and then I wanted to be a writer.
Okay.
And at the time, there was no Facebook, no social media, no LinkedIn. The only way to be seen is to get on stage and perform and hope that you're doing a showcase with someone, or get on like the Daily Show and Friends shows that were happening at like comics and all the clubs that are out of business now, Dangerfields. What did you want to be growing up? I mean, not that you're that old now, but.
I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a Broadway actress.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, and like, is that still part of the agenda, or?
I wanted to be like in musicals. That
Okay.
was what I wanted, and I think I've kind of let go of trying to be a good singer. You know.
Was that holding you back?
I think for a while, I think I had a good voice when I was younger.
But
I kind of lost some confidence, and I got pretty bullied in high school. And then I went to college. I studied like environmental science, and then I graduated. I still wanted to do acting, so I went to like acting school. I went to like Stella Adler Evening Conservatory, but I still like wasn't really feeling like I was getting anywhere. So I was working at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, and it was kind of like my whole identity. And I had like thought about stand-up for a little bit. And I had like written some stuff, but I didn't really have the motivation to do anything about it. And I was dating this guy. It wasn't serious or anything, but I went with it. He was a director, and not like for anything important, but I went with him to a, what's it called? A movie premiere of a movie. And the girls in it were, the stars were my age, these actors, and it was just about these two girls that were my age, and everyone's like introducing each other to each other after the movie, and everyone's like, what do you do? Like, I'm an actor, like I'm a director, and I'm like going around being like, yeah, I work in coffee.
I work in coffee.
Because that's like really how I saw myself, and then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And then
does that go back to the fact that you were bullied? Like, did that make you lose like self-worth?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
I felt really embarrassed of like every single thing I did, kind of.
Okay.
And but after that, I was like, what am I doing? And the next day, I actually went to an open mic, and then I went to an open mic every single day after that. So I feel like that event kind of inspired me to be like, what the fuck am I doing? I need to like do something with my life.
Yeah, I think that's like pretty common, like your path into getting back into doing stuff that you actually enjoy.
Yeah, I feel like stand-up actually helped my confidence so much in a way that's like enabling me to like act again, because like the amount you have to fail and get back up with stand-up is something that like has empowered me in a way that nothing else in my life has.
And so when you started doing the open mics, that was your first time getting into stand-up? Like, you didn't do any classes or anything like that? Mm-mm. See, that's what I didn't even know about open mics.
Really?
Because I think we're like, there's like maybe a 10-year age difference.
How old are you?
I'm turning 38 next
Okay,
week.
I'm 29.
So we're 9 years. We barely had internet. Like, when I started stand-up, we didn't have iPhones. So I didn't know about communities, and the only way to build a community was literally to show up to a place and find people that are doing what you're doing. So I took a comedy class, and I don't regret it for a second. I've spoken about this on the show before. Like, a comedy class with Jessica Kirsten will get you confident enough to get on
I love her.
stage.
I did her social media.
I love her. She's the best. She's one of those comics that you're like, she should be the most famous person in the world right now.
I agree.
I love her. But yeah, I took a comedy class, and then I had an unnatural trajectory of like success, and then I wasn't getting closer to what I wanted to do, which was write for late night or SNL. So I was like, well, I don't like telling the same jokes over and over, because I just got bored of it, and I realized you can't really be a successful comic doing only topical stuff. So I was like, this just isn't for me. I started focusing on the screenwriting stuff, but yeah, it's not easy. Like, the fact that you're doing it, and the fact that you have the confidence to like put out a special on your YouTube where it just gets mass visibility, and also it's successful. You have like almost 500,000 views on there? Mm-hmm. That's considered a success for a comedy special on YouTube, because there's so much content on there that for somebody to go and spend time watching yours, that says a lot of like where you came from doing the stand-up. Like you're set now. You've built that audience. So like, what's next? Like, you're going to continue doing stand-up, but are you focusing on like the scripted projects?
I think stand-up is really important to me. I want to keep writing, keep being the funniest comic I can be, keep like being more of myself on stage. I think like being able to tell my story in a way that's funny is really important to me, and like being able to talk about mental health on stage in a funny way is so important to me. And I think I'm like 6 years in right now. I feel like that's the point where I'm like really finding the truest version of my voice. So I'm just excited to like keep writing and putting out stand-up.
Yeah, it's interesting when people say you have to do like 10,000 hours. I feel like it's less about the repetition, like the getting on stage, and more about, well, in those 10,000 hours, you're gonna find out about real life, especially if you're like young. I was 22. I didn't accomplish shit. I went to a commuter school, so I wasn't at parties. I didn't drink. It's just an interesting thing of like, yeah, the 10,000 hours doesn't always, at least in stand-up, it doesn't necessarily mean you're just getting comfortable on stage. You also have to figure out who the fuck you are, because if you don't do that, your comedy is going to be horrendous.
Well, I feel like more it's like stand-up is just like getting closer and closer to just being yourself.
Yeah.
And like you just like getting comfortable to be, it's like that thing of, I forget that quote, but like some famous artist like drew a picture in like 2 seconds, and this guy was like, why can't you give it to me for free? That took you 2 seconds. He's like, it didn't take me 2 seconds. It took me 50 years and 2 seconds. But like that's how I feel like stand-up is.
Okay, so you're in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best advice you've gotten and the worst advice you've gotten?
Oh man, it's funny because my podcast, I actually always ask the best advice you ever received.
Okay.
So no one ever asked me this, but I ask people this like every week. So it's fun getting asked this question. I was not prepared to answer it, but I'm excited to answer it. Okay. Man, I think about it a lot though. Okay, one thing, I won't say this is the best advice, but I would say it's important, is definitely like consider the advice before you take it. I think a lot of people will just like blindly take someone's advice because of like who they are.
That's a good one.
So just like, consider, it doesn't, just because someone has a really established career doesn't mean you should just kind of like take their words as truth. It really, or their feedback on your jokes as truth or anything like that. I can't believe you have these little things. What are those?
He just came with this. They're like regular bins.
Those bins are so tiny.
They're baby bins.
And you did this so quickly, and he's so cute.
You're crushing it. You've got, that's really impressive,
no, considering
we've been
fast.
talking the whole time.
Yeah,
You're doing it while speaking.
I have a headache, and I'm talking and doing Legos, and I have ADD. I'm very impressed with myself.
So am I.
But I'm more impressed with your elephant.
I'm also impressed with Donkey Kong's tie. This is amazing. We're getting there.
Wow. Okay, so the best advice, man.
That is really good advice. Consider the advice you're taking.
Definitely consider I think the most important thing to me is like not to focus on what anyone else is doing, just to focus on your own. Like people, it's so easy to get distracted by other people, but you've got to focus on on your own. Keep your eyes on your own plate.
Do you constantly find yourself doing that? Like, will you see are there people that you're seeing on social media and comparing yourself to or trying to compete with? It's like one of those one-person competitions like I used to do on the treadmill at the gym. Like, oh, I'm walking faster than this person. They have no idea that I'm competing with them.
No, but I feel like other people do that a lot, and I think it's like something I see holding my peers back. I think that a lot of my peers are really, really funny, and that they would be farther along if they didn't have the bitterness of comparing themselves to each other, Like, sometimes I'm like, wow, the one thing holding you back is the fact that, like, you're full of hate.
Yeah, I think there's a bitterness, especially with a particular age group that holds a lot of people back. Seeing what you have access to in terms of social media now compared to a lot of your peers that maybe grew up in the industry without it, do you prefer the social media availability, or would you have liked to have done this with like without any of that in the back of your mind, because it is always there. You're always going to see somebody getting something that either you might think they don't deserve it, or you want it, or.
I mean, I don't look at anyone else's social media. It's not interesting to me what
Really?
anyone else is doing. Like, sure, like I'll scroll social media, but it's like I like social media because, and I like stand-up. Like I like the autonomy that I have in my career. Like that's very appealing to me. I'm very grateful for social media, and like I'm very grateful that I'm doing stand-up during this time. Like I'm a very motivated and business-oriented person, so I'm grateful that like I'm provided with the tools where like I can be a businesswoman and I can be a comedian. Like I think that a lot of people are frustrated that they have to take that responsibility, but I mean, it's like it is a business, and if people don't want to accept that, that's their own fault. I do feel, I mean, I definitely follow people. I do feel like people take it very personally, and I think you have to be aware of like how personally people take interactions on social media. But you know, I think it's like really important that like the first half an hour of my day, I'm not on my phone. It's important, like my mood is drastically affected by like seeing the fake world that's presented to me on my phone, but I'm very grateful of the power that it's given me to, you know, dictate my own career.
So what's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Damn, the worst advice, I guess the worst advice I've ever gotten would be to be a perfectionist about sharing my work. I read this really awesome thing in The Artist's Way like a couple days ago. I love that book, but it basically said like perfectionism is kind of perfectionism is really like a relationship with the worst part of yourself. I just feel like a lot of comics like are afraid of putting themselves out there. They're like, I don't want to burn my material. I don't want to do this. It's like, well, then what are you waiting for? Like, you want someone to like go find you at this bar show? Like, who are you afraid of judging you?
Yeah, no, I agree, but I see a major shift since that was the mentality for so long, and now I think your generation of comics are showing people, no, you're not giving up material, you're just showcasing yourself, where a lot of older comics they just didn't have the platform.
Yeah.
So like their option was post it to YouTube, to Facebook, and hope it gets likes, and you had to be friends with the people that saw it. Where now I think the options are so they're so wide that you post it to one place, you don't know what's going to blow up, you don't know what algorithm is going to do anything for it, and you're just showcasing yourself in a way that you don't have to have the pressure of, oh, the guy's in the room with me. That was another one when you used to get bamboozled in New York about, yeah, come to a industry showcase at Broadway Comedy. I'm like, what?
I mean, that still happens, and you still do have to impress people in person.
You do, but I think I felt like a lot of those people felt like they were forced to be in those rooms, if they were even in those rooms, as opposed to, oh, I want to go see this person because I've seen their clips and they're really good and I want to see them in front of a live audience. I think it just feels better to have someone actively seek you. Like that's what I was told when I started comedy about a manager. Don't reach out to managers, let them find you. But we just didn't have, that was the worst advice I ever got, because everyone I know that ended up repped reached out to people that didn't know they existed and didn't have that platform to show people they existed.
Right.
So are you looking to still do acting? Are you looking to still?
Yes, definitely.
So if you were given the option of acting or comedy, what would you take?
Oh my God, that's so not fair. I would say both.
I mean, you'll never have to choose. I think, but as you've seen, like comics who become actors, they just have less time for the stand-up.
Wow. I mean, I really love acting so much. It's really tough, but I don't know. I wouldn't know until it happened.
What's your what are some of your favorite like shows and movies?
I like comedies.
Okay.
I mean, that is the truth. I like comedies, but like in comedies, there's always like the dramatic person that's like they're being serious, but in the context, it's funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you're not really looking for awards, because we don't get those.
Awards?
People in comedy don't get that.
I'm just looking to have fun.
Okay, so you're from New York. Did you just move out? Because I feel like you told me you're in Jersey now.
after college, I moved back in with my mom. She was living in Astoria.
Okay.
And then I actually moved to I moved to Brooklyn. And then I moved to LA actually, briefly.
Did you really? How long ago was that?
In 2019.
Oh, right before the pandemic. Perfect.
Yeah, and then my mom moved to Jersey. So I moved in with her again. And then I stayed with her for a while, and then I found my own place. So,
and out of all those places, what was your favorite?
Wow. I guess, that's tough. I don't know. I guess wherever my dog is.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm so jealous of people that are like living at home. It is just unlivable everywhere.
What do you mean?
Like everything's so expensive.
It is very expensive.
I had to buy a place out here because it was cheaper than renting.
I thought about it this year. I was like, wow, it was nice like living with my mom. I didn't have to pay rent, but I also thought about like, the identity crisis that came with not paying for myself at 28 years old. I had this joke on stage that I did about living in my mom's basement, and I did it up till like I moved out, and people were like, did not think I meant it because I'm like touring as like a headliner, and people are like buying pretty expensive tickets to see me, and they're like, you don't mean that, right? Like, you don't actually live in your mom's basement. And I'm like, oh, no, that's a joke. And then I started changing it. I was like, yeah, I used to live in my mom's basement, but I still did. But then I went back to being honest. I'm like, I kind of should lie, but I still live here. But it's like, people really don't realize how much you have to sacrifice to full-time follow your dreams for a pretty significant amount of time. It was only May of 2023 that I was able to fully support myself.
Well, comedy is a whole separate thing. Like, there's no union. There's nobody protecting you guys when a pandemic happens. So It's a whole separate type of commitment and sacrifice. But I definitely remember living at home being seen as a negative when I was online dating, like back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago. It was like, oh, you still live at home with your mom. Now I think people would see that as a financial genius. Like, my 20s, I lived at home, and it was just, I moved out at 28, and I was like, oh, it's not the end of the world.
How long were you a comic?
4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did you make the definitive choice, like, I am quitting?
Because
That's pretty crazy.
It's one of those.
Were you like a hardcore, I do stand-up every day comic?
No, I was the opposite. I hated taking public transportation, so I would only come in if I had a spot. I wasn't doing open mics. I was doing my show. So here's what happened, and it's kind of, again, I'm
so confused.
It's not normal.
It's not.
I sent a minute of material into Opie and Anthony to be their funniest listener in their funniest listener competition. This was my first time doing stand-up in front of like a real audience and not the comedy class.
Okay.
And then I won the competition.
Ooh, what was the minute? What was the jokes?
Well, the minute I submitted was an Anne Frank joke, like a hacky Anne Frank hide and seek joke.
Of course.
Yeah. Super hacky, and I ended up but you had to do 5 minutes for the competition. So Voss was the host, Bonnie was a judge. Like, that's how I met them, and I won the competition. And then I just started performing regularly at comics before that became a drug den. And I got very lucky. I started getting booked more on things, but I wasn't doing the rounds like comics do now. I wasn't jumping from club to club. I was doing one club a night, and then I go home because I didn't want to do it. So it goes back to the self-esteem issues. I didn't think this appearance should be in front of people. Like, this should not be in front of a crowd of people that are forced to stare at me for 15 minutes. And it's don't meet your heroes. Like, I always wanted to write for late night and for SNL, and then you meet people who do that, and they're like, it is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And that just became less appealing. Right. And then I stumbled into the web series world, and I'm like, I like writing scripted comedy that I can produce. So I just got deep into that world, and then I produced the stuff for Warner Music, and I produced, I wrote feature, and like, it's that kind of stuff that I love to do, just behind the camera, production stuff, writing and producing. I was like, I don't need to be on stage. Let people that actually want. I was taking space from people who actually wanted to be there.
So you felt self-conscious about your face, not your words.
My face, my body, yeah. I hated doing the jokes over and over, but they would work. Like, I didn't.
Why didn't you just write more?
It was less about the joke writing. I had tons of material. I think I did new material on my retirement show.
You know what? Chase said you were funny.
Yeah.
So I have to believe her.
I'm shocked. I mean, I guess I did okay.
Do you think you'll ever go back to it?
I mean, that would be embarrassing. I don't want to be one of those guys. Yeah, I retired. Well, I'm back, guys. I'm taking another spot that you guys don't want.
Embarrassing.
Here's what I'll say. Working at a comedy club and seeing some of the people that were past there, it definitely made me think I could go back to it and be okay.
Yeah.
But again, I think I'd rather be on the other end of it. I love what I'm doing now, being able to produce and being able to help comics however I can, like in the behind the scenes spots, and I kind of love doing that. And then writing the scripted stuff on the side is kind of like my preference compared to like the spots. I'll say this, LA, a lot easier than New York for getting on stage and getting around, and the car definitely helps. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think everyone that works like in a club or behind the scenes like secretly wants to be on stage?
Let me answer this. Our accountant at the Comedy Store does the open mics on Monday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was honestly part of my promise when I took the job. I do not want to do comedy. I want to come here, I want to build you a production studio, and I want to run a production studio. I'm not looking to get on stage. Because everybody there wanted to get on stage.
But is that why everyone's so like bitter and judgmental in this industry? Because they secretly want to be doing what the talent is doing?
Yes, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I think a lot of no's that you get are from people who are just angry that you have made it that far to even cross their paths.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it firsthand. People saying, this person this and this person that. It's like, were they funny or were they not funny? I don't want to hear about their personal life. I don't want to know about, they're friends with so and so. That happens a lot here too. It's like, well, he's part of that group, so we don't want to really interact with that. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
The amount of times I hear Rogan crowd, quote unquote, I'm like, I don't want to hear about the Rogan crowd. Is this person funny or are they not funny? If they're funny, the Rogan crowd means nothing.
That is valid.
Were there comics that made you want to get into stand-up, or was it really just your desire to do it?
Yeah, definitely. There's that album with Amy Schumer, Marina Franklin, Rachel Feinstein, and Nikki Glaser, and that album really inspired me.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best. I will never agree with the shit that Amy gets.
I honestly, have so much respect for her and how much she's done. She's such a badass.
Yeah, I love Amy. Rachel is one of my favorite ever. She's another one. She's in the Jessica Kirsten category.
Jessica's amazing, yeah. I love Jessica so much.
She's also just a good person.
She is.
Like, aside from being hilarious, she's one of those people that's just good in the industry.
You know, I feel like, I ran her social media for a year, and feel like I just learned so much from watching her, because I would make her clips and I just learned so much from making them, because you kind of just study someone that way, and she's just so brilliant in the way that she's so present in her stand-up and her crowd work. I think that's why her crowd work is so amazing, because she's so present. She's just like the funniest person.
Can you give a specific thing that you picked up that you're like, oh, okay?
I think that if she feels a certain way in the moment, she completely acknowledges it. Like if she sees someone in the audience giving her a face or responding a certain way to something she's saying, she acknowledges it in the most honest way, and it's fucking hilarious. And I think that is a true talent of hers.
That's one thing I love about Jim Norton also.
Yeah.
He will call out if he bombs, he will make sure the audience knows he bombed. Regardless of the fact that they just heard no laughter. He will call himself out every single time. I love that about Jim. He's not going to let the moment, okay, on to my next bit. He will call it out and acknowledge it and then move on from there. And Jess has always been a killer.
She kills. The way the laughs in that room, it's like, there's a difference between knowing you get consistent laughter and then the type of laughter that's just a deep belly laugh.
Someone's in pain because they're laughing
that's just
so
they're
hard.
crying and you're like, damn. And also Bonnie is one of my, I've been reading her book. I'm like halfway through, and
So
she's one
good.
of my all-time favorite people. Like, I feel like I watch her writing, and it's just so original. Also, like, her story of where she came from is just amazing.
Yeah. Are there any comics that really stand out for you, like right now, that you're seeing at shows that you're like, okay, this person's the next batch of like success?
It's a ton, honestly. I feel like we're in a time where it's pretty crazy, actually. People are just like kind of popping off left and right.
The comedy boom since the pandemic has been kind of nice to see. It's still very run by a few big companies, but I think that's changing as people are starting to release their own stuff.
I mean, I really appreciate like letting go of like the gatekeeping of comedy. Like, I don't think there should be like a certain people that gatekeep what's funny and what's not, and I like that that's kind of going away.
Yeah, I think part of that has to do with the fact that people won't accept that it's subjective. So there's a lot of absolutes of like, this person isn't funny. It's like, no, you didn't think this person's funny. I saw them crush in front of a crowd of 300 people.
Right.
And I think that's changing the more that people do let go and post their stuff online, because you're finding your audience, which was very difficult to do outside of a comedy club until the last few years. I think the pandemic changed a lot of it.
Pandemic was a crazy. What did you do over the pandemic?
I was fortunate enough to still be working for the record label, so I was at home just living my life.
I finished the
What about you?
first bag.
That is impressive.
I feel like this took me a really long time.
No,
I mean, do I move on to bag 2, or do I do
it's
the little
open. You
figurine?
could try, and then we'll just pass it. We'll send it back.
All right.
If you could change one thing about comedy right now, what would it be?
I wish people would be like a little more supportive of each other. You know, I think that's what I would change.
That's pretty fair. I think that's a good one.
I mean, I feel like people don't really understand that it's not like there's one spot. Like, there's room for everyone. You can support your peers, and it's not going to hurt you. Creativity and like all of that, it needs it needs support, needs love, it needs community to flourish. So if you're always in competition with your peers, you're not going to go anywhere. Like, if you look at the most successful people, they're not hating everyone around them. They are lifting each other up. So I think it's a really important thing for people to remember.
And that's one thing I will say, a positive about LA. Everyone here seems to be supportive of each other in ways that I did not see in New York.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do with New York itself. Like I always say.
It's just so like.
Yeah, it's so aggressive.
You know what is so weird here? Like, the Uber drivers are like literally playing their own music. I found that to be so bizarre.
Wait, what?
I took an Uber to the Improv the other night, and the Uber driver's name was Billy. And I noticed that like the songs playing in the car were like 20 seconds, and then they would stop, and they were very like heavy beats. And I was like, okay. And then I looked, and he was playing like files from his email that he had sent to himself, and like kept opening and restarting. No. And I was like, oh my God, he's like playing his own music. And I'm like, I understand. I mean, it's LA, everyone's in entertainment.
It's kind of genius, but also.
And then I'm like, what if I did that with like my own stand-up? That'd be so funny. Like, people just get in the car and I'm playing my album.
I mean, that would be funny to film.
I mean, I don't think I would go through all that, but it's kind of crazy. I mean, I really was like, wow, this guy is committed. But the Uber drivers here are so different than the Uber drivers in New York. I mean, pretty much everywhere in America, they are chatty and they'll talk and they'll be like, how's your day? But in New York, if you even try to talk to an Uber driver, they're like, don't.
Nope. Out here, they all want to talk to me.
They all want to chat, which is nice.
What do you do? I mean, there's a point where like it's 4 a.m. I'm trying to get to the airport.
Yeah.
Let's be friends another time. But it's one of the things that I hate about here also, right? Like I go to a coffee place, especially when I first moved here. They all want to talk to you, especially if they hear my accent. They all want to talk about Oh, where's your accent from? Where are you from? Oh, New York. Oh, what are you doing here? Did you move here? And it's like, I'd love to be friends, but I'm here for coffee. I'm not awake yet. That's why I'm here for coffee. And also, like the thing that kills me most here is the slow pace, and the fact that
it's quite slow.
The fact that it's like you could wait all day in line for coffee, and I was never the person in New York to be like, hey, what's taking so long? Like screaming, like what's going on? Out here, I'm that person. Like, it's been 15 minutes, I haven't moved a step in this coffee line. What are we doing? It's just a lot out there.
Impressively, the coffee, as someone that, my identity was being a barista for quite some time, in Brooklyn, and we were trained to be very, very quick.
Yeah, in and out.
And it is impressive because I was actually saying this to Dan, like, if you're not going to serve someone, you should at least be like, hey, I'll be with you in a second. They don't even acknowledge you. They're just they just don't look at you. Like, you should be like, hey, I'll get to you in a minute, so sorry. Like, they don't even look at you. It's so weird.
It's bizarre.
You are supposed to say like, hey, so sorry, we're busy, I'll get to you in a second. It is a bit rude not to say anything at all.
So let's get to the last question. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
One thing about myself? In what category?
I mean, that's for you to choose. You're only picking one thing.
Well, I wouldn't be sick right now for sure. Okay. I mean, this has really been a
bummer.
One
thing about healthy Natalie.
But I think I would try to be a little bit more present in my life, maybe.
In what way?
I think sometimes I'm on my phone a little too much. I think I would try to be on my phone a little bit less.
That's a good one. That's something I have to do also. I mean,
it's just like it's like a habit, that like the moment I'm away from people, I just pull it out and I start scrolling God knows what, and it's just really unhealthy. I feel like I think about it and I'm like, you're only here for however long, and yeah, I've wasted a lot of my life looking at images on a phone I don't even care about, and it makes me sad to know that I am addicted to my phone. I know this is dumb, but I saw a TikTok video that was like, if you take your phone into different rooms of your apartment with you, you have an addiction to your phone. And I'm like, I do that.
Oh, I absolutely do.
And that's like bad. That's really bad. So I would definitely work on my phone addiction if I could change something about myself. Another thing that it said is that like if you're out to dinner with someone and you have the phone on the table, even if it's face down, that kind of shows that like you don't care, you're not giving them your full attention. Even if you don't look at your phone, but the phone's on the table and it's face down, you're kind of showing that the phone does still matter. And I was like, fuck, I do that.
I do that.
I put my phone on the table. I won't look at it, but it's on the table face down. Like, that's not right. So like little things like that show the person you're with, like you are valuing your phone over them. I don't want to do that. I value people more than my phone.
I have an even worse one for you.
Okay.
When I'm driving.
Yeah.
When I'm driving, my girlfriend will get furious, especially if she sees me like, part of my habit, just recently, since I started doing my like 7-mile walks, I'm like, I need something to entertain myself. I re-downloaded Pokemon Go.
That's fun though. I'll give you that.
I do it while I'm driving, and she got me. And it's like you're literally not valuing their life. You're literally playing while you're driving. That's something I need to get much better at. Where she's like, "Are you catching Pokemon right now?" And I'm like driving 50 on the highway.
To be fair, driving is so boring.
It really is, right? It's so boring.
I honestly can't stand how boring driving is. The most boring thing ever. I can't handle it.
I love it, and I prefer it over public transportation.
Oh, yes.
But I absolutely, like even in Brooklyn, I drove everywhere. But
it's painfully boring.
Yeah, especially long drives. It's like sometimes you just want to catch a Pokemon.
Of course, sometimes you just need to catch a Pokemon. What's your favorite Pokemon?
I mean, I don't really know their name. Oh, there's one that has a really funny name that I really like.
Which is?
I have to look in my phone. I don't know them by heart yet, and I'm embarrassed about that because I've caught them all.
Wow. I don't know. I think the one thing you should change about yourself is knowing the names of the Pokemon you caught. Like, that's kind of a respect thing.
It is. I'm one of those people who hates not knowing someone's name, so it makes sense.
I actually love not knowing someone's name.
Oh, you're at that point in your career?
No, it's not in my career.
When someone says, "Oh, Natalie, you're great," and you're like, oh my God, thank you so much. I love you too. And then you're like, who the fuck was that?
It's not a career thing. It's actually when I was younger, I used to know people's names so well. It was like almost embarrassing. I would just know everyone's name. And now I'm at the point where I'm proud of myself if I'm not obsessing over people's names.
Okay, that's fair. I'm one of those people who gets so excited that anyone wants to talk to me that when they introduce themselves, I forget their name.
No, you're not.
I swear to God. When anyone wants to talk to me, especially at the Comedy Store, they would walk away and say, what the fuck was their name? They just told me their name. That's another bad thing of mine. It's like I'm so caught up in introducing myself to them, I completely ignore whatever they're saying to me, and then it's just embarrassing. But I'm getting better at that.
I'm going crazy right now.
Everything seems fine.
No, it's not, because I do think that I need 2 more of these long pieces.
Which ones?
But I could be wrong. I could be right. You know.
Well, listen, we're shipping it back to you in New York, and you will finish this, and we'll figure it out. Or take it back to the hotel. It's your call. You look so upset about it.
It's fine.
Natalie, where can they find you?
Where can you find me? You can find me on Instagram at Natalie Cuomo _. You can find me everywhere else at Natalie Cuomo. Follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/Natalie Cuomo. Check out my podcast, Help with Natalie Cuomo. That's youtube.com/@helpwithnatalie. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can follow me at Say It Ain't Sosis, follow Building Friendship series, and come back for the next episode. Who knows who it'll be? I don't know. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you.